What's up, everybody? So we are in College Station, which is my hometown, and I figured since we're here I'd show you some cool stuff. My buddy John Whiting has an amazing motorcycle and car collection, so we're gonna go out to his place and see what he's got hiding in his secret lair. Also, on a side note, since I'm visiting and have no car here, my buddy let me borrow his Raptor, and I am really enjoying this thing. So to add to the theater of driving today, it is a rainy Texas day, and I'm sitting here driving this Raptor. But I'm not gonna lie, this is like the perfect Texas truck to be in, and I'm loving it. So I'm just gonna say, I really, it's been a long time since I've driven a big vehicle like this. I'm a huge fan, and I've always wanted a Raptor, but this, I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of a lot more fun than I thought it would be driving this truck in the rain. And I might have started checking out getting a Raptor. So we've made the trek to my buddy John's shop at this super undisclosed location because it's his private collection. And I'm gonna show you what he's got here. I'm not well versed in motorcycles, I'll admit that. So John's gonna walk us through his collection and show us what he's got. I don't know where we're going to start. There's a lot of stuff to cover here. But this is my man right behind me. This is John. This is his collection. And so I'm just going to have John walk us through a few bikes here, and we'll see what he's got in his collection. Because, I mean, like, it's a lot. It's a lot. But, so yeah. So we're going to do that. So, John, well, tell me what... actually, let's start with this bike. Let's start with this bike, and we'll work our way around the room.
It's a 1957 Moto Marini Trecette, and... of Italian vintage that came out of a museum in Colorado, the Silverman Museum. And it's actually been a bike that we bought and had to do very little to keep it going. So, you know, it's a fairly easy maintenance bike. The controls are all backwards from other motorcycles, so that just happens to be Italian bikes.
So clutches on the...
Yeah, everything's kind of swapped.
Swap around. Okay, cool.
You kind of have to be thinking when you go out riding it, or you'll...
you know. Horsepower engine on this car?
Yeah. What, 13?
13?
I'm guessing.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That's probably given that you don't want it to.
So, I mean, it's kind of, cool. I've ridden it with the local scooter groups a couple times. It's actually a good bike to do that if you can remember which way to shift and which side the brakes are on. This is a late 80s wood Rotax 676. And they made 11 of the single overhead cam models and 5 of the dual overhead cam models. And it was raced by a guy, Micah Stevenson, in the CMRA back in the probably late 80s, early 90s. And subsequently, you know, the classes that it was legal to race in banned them from racing in those classes.
Oh, man.
Almost exclusively. So, you know, what ended up happening to it is that, you know, you couldn't legally run it except in classes where it could be beat.
An interesting setup with the projector lens and then...
Well, that wasn't factory, by the way. That's something Philip and I decided that we were going to make it street legal.
Okay.
So it's got a headlight. It has an ATK, which is like an endurance motorcycle that of construct in the United States, and we got a complete wiring harness because they use a 604cc Rotax, which this is a 676.
Okay.
So same basic engine, except this has been all leaned on. Upper part, some other things like that that came with The bike was in 3 different garages in pieces when I bought it, so it was a complete basket case. Which is the way a bunch of these bikes have started, you know, because they're rare, and then, you know, people quit using them and they take them apart and they sell 2 or 3 components that are real expensive, and then, you know, and they end up getting scattered everywhere.
Yeah. So this has a signature.
It has a couple of them, you know. It has Doug Poland's signature, and he was a world champion, and he has a very artful white writing with the number 1 on it. And then, I'm sure much to his dismay, is Eric Bostrom's signature that's below it, who certainly never won a World Superbike Championship. Did he?
Eric, no.
No, I don't think Eric did.
AMA.
Oh no, I was writing something else, I remember. I met him out there, and I came back to the house, and I took the 4 bolts out and took the tail back to him, and he signed it. I did not have it out there to ride. I think probably because it wouldn't start. More than likely.
So there's, I mean, I'm seeing a few Ducatis in the collection. Well, this is a monster, yes.
That's a monster. It was, you know, some billionaire built it, spent a buttload of money on it, and then lost his job, is what I heard. And, you know, he started trying to sell it, and then he got desperate. I don't know, I got a great deal on it. It's carbon fiber wheels, man.
It has everything on it. New brakes.
Those are, you know, BST carbon fiber wheels. There's the tank right up there, which is the carbon fiber tank with the Ducati and the...
Oh, wow.
That was a custom paint job that I got done afterwards by one of the mechanics that works on my Ducatis. This in particular, there's a couple more up in my garage with the cars.
Oh, wow. Oh, this bike. I remember last time we were here, we talked about this bike.
It's a Drixton fighter. It's actually the Drixton frame, the original frame.
Black
pipes and seat and all that came with the bike. Had gone through this restoration for, you know, racing it in historic motorcycle racing class. So he had taken that frame, took everything off that frame and put it on this Dresda frame. So there's a Drixton frame and a Dresda, and the Drixton is the much rarer of the two as I understand it, but somebody could call me on that real easily. There's so many different forms of information about stuff that's kind of rare like that. But it's based on a Honda CB 450 engine, and it was the kind of a poor man's GP bike. So, you know, you had all these guys that you've heard of that were racing MV Agustas and stuff like that, and that won championships and won, you know, 120 or 130 races, Agostini people. And then there was, you know, regular Joes that raced GP, and they were bikes like this, which, you know, I'm sure would be beat by 4 or 5 minutes in a GP race, but it was still something someone could afford to go out and race in that class. By, you know, a moto journalist and motorcycle racer in England.
That's dope. I think it's crazy. The real taking this is that if you start at like some of like the old bikes and then you move forward, even like the racing bikes and stuff, how like simple it was, and then how, you know.
Well, yeah, we were just talking about that. I mean, that's a 1988 Hawk GT, and this one happens to have some pretty exclusive provenance because it was a Two Brothers racing bike. And so it has, you know, nicely done oil catch tanks and battery boxes, and, you know, it, you know, had a higher performance engine and an exhaust system to match with it. And this one has a couple different front ends that can be put on it. But I mean, you can see single side swing arm, pretty simple bike. You know, the stock, what were they, 660 cc, a Hawk GT?
650, 647,
yeah.
some.
And they made horsepower maybe in the mid 50s.
Oh no, I'd probably say in the 30s.
Really?
Oh yeah, like they do with all the naked bikes. They're all foo-foo. You take an R1 motor and make it have 47 horsepower, sell it FZ1. I mean, they've started to change. The Europeans will give you full power, like in their naked
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, well.
But the Japanese don't really want to play that game then, it seems like.
Yeah, these two, the red VFR and the one to the right of it over here are VFR 400, which is an NC30, and the blue bike with the stripes on is NC35, and they're replicas of the RC30 and RC45 750cc bikes. They were basically built in Japan, and they ended up getting exported heavily into UK through Indonesia, those parts of the world, and some of them made their way as probably gray bikes into the United States. And so those are, those are 50 horsepower V4 400 Honda motorcycles. The one on the left is kind of cool because it's was a KISS Racing endurance racer and was a backup bike for a team that raced there.
Suzuka.
Yeah, at Suzuka in Japan.
Oh, wow.
And so it has a single headlight that was, and it's, everything on it is all Honda HRC kit.
So this blue bike here?
Exhaust, no, the red one.
Oh, the red one, okay.
And see, it has a headlight in the fender and a single headlight front on it, and it's real dusty and dirty. But it's a little V4, They made probably 53 to 57 horsepower. That's a 92, and this one's a 95. And of course the 750s in those models are not unobtainium, but you have to have major coin now to buy one. The 750s are probably $30,000 for a decent one, and a really nice one a lot more. And the RC45s, I've only seen about 3 of them in my life out in the out in the jungle, man. I saw one in Laguna Seca, and it was some beater this guy paid almost nothing for. And we had to help push start him like 3 times. and I'm like, man, that's an RC45 guy. Can't even start it.
So, John, what are these 2 bikes here, these 2 twin bikes that you have?
Those are Bamotas. They're both DB4s. They're both filthy. And with Bamotas, they have a designation at the beginning of each model name. So a DB of any number is a Ducati-based Bamota. And, SB, Suzuki, HB, Honda.
Oh, okay.
So, they're set up to be named that way, and those were DB4s. And, the DB1 were very much like a Ducati trellis frame. And by the time that they came out with a DB4, it was kind of based on a frame made in Japan called Over. And about the same time when these came out, and then the Suzuki SV650 came out with exactly the same look. And all of a sudden, kind of the exclusivity of this look disappeared because you could go buy a Suzuki, it looked just like it. Not in terms of the body style or the coloring and the fact that it looked like you worked for a pizza company and there to deliver the pizzas. But it is got the most awesome air and oil cooled Ducati 1000cc sound on the planet. Oh. And both of those have the Corsa, the race exhaust on it. Oh my God! When you hear that thing take off up the road, it sounds like a V12. Oh, wow. Even though it's only a twin, it's just an amazing sound. Bike and do wheelies all day long, and I don't. And that's a little replica, a Biaggi replica that Aprilia made called an RS250, and they made a cup bike for which they had a Challenge Cup racing series in the United States. And I had one of those, and I rode it just as a club racer, and I sucked. And, I thought I was going to go out there and maybe ride when they had the Cup Challenge come to Texas World Speedway. And then I realized that the fast guys were all going like 15 seconds a lap faster than me. And not only that, but one of them was John Hopkins and one was Ben Speed, so I had no business on the track with those guys. So I left it parked, watched the race. Had a couple spare tires for people that ended up getting in a bind, which was cool. Oh, but I rode that all over in the hill country. And, it's got a 316 kitted. This guy in the snowmobile two-stroke world started leaning on these engines, and this was one of the early ones, so it has stayed in one piece, you know. The more advanced he got in building them, the more they started blowing up. And so this one's still in one piece. And I bet it makes 70 horsepower at the crank, which is impressive in a bike that only weighs like, it only weighs about 20 pounds more than I do. I'll put it that way. It's the twin overhead cam model, but it has a single overhead cam engine in it right now. And so you can see one of the primary differences between this frame and that one that's on the 74 bike is this notch right here, which allowed twin overhead cams to fit in what was essentially the same frame design. It also has a much more sophisticated bracing on the swing arm in back, and then this front end uses, you know, upside down forks and has a way to change the trail on the motorcycle by adjusting the headstock. So when you go in here and take this nut off, there is 3 different positions that you can put between the top and the bottom of this that changes the rake of the bike, so you can stand it more on its nose whenever you want quicker turn in, and when you need stability, like at Daytona or something, and you want to make the bike as long as you can because it's already real short.
Yeah, that's pretty
so
slick.
You want as much trail as you can get out of it. I know I may have screwed this bike up because I modified it along the lines of the way TZ250 geometry was, and I'd kind of gotten this notion that this company, which would come in with lasers and they would take all the measurements for your bike and then basically change it into a 250, even though the weight distribution is significantly different in this, you know. And so that ended up requiring that the front end be lowered a little bit and the back end be raised considerably. And in the process, they didn't change the geometry associated with the dog bones, which are part of the mechanical element that determines how much force is fed through the shock in different positions, okay? And that also has an effect on the damping rate associated with that shock. Oh. So when they didn't change those dog bones, but they lifted the ass end up, it really did foul up the handling of the bike. And, you know, Philip tried to race it over in Road Atlanta at the Grand Nationals. And, you know, he was going plenty fast on it, but, you know, it was so goddamn uncomfortable for him to ride.
Was that rear end just unsettled?
I don't know. What was the worst thing it was doing? I mean, it was turning fine, right? You just had trouble in the...
They had it so tweaked up over on itself that what it would do is it would stand. You know, any time it would just want to stand up. It wouldn't be that you could like really finish the corner. You know, you really fought it the whole time. I mean, it was quick handling and stuff, but you just, yeah.
It definitely was working better prior to all these modifications that were made. And yet, you know, you can still change elements of it back. So, you know, that's something we'll play with. But, you know.
To turn a race car into a street car is a lot difficult, I would imagine.
Well, you know, that's really the only thing that we've done. It was purely a race bike that, you know, can be, you know, I haven't even pursued trying to get a title for it yet, you know, so that would all have to be started through a process in probably another state than Texas, you know. Where
I don't know. Texas is pretty amazing as far as stuff. We were at the Formula One race. I don't know if you saw that McLaren P1 GTR. That was not by any means a street car.
Yeah, that was the white car. Was it white?
California's the most for them.
Was it white?
It's yellow and black, and it's got this huge wing on it. It had the huge wide fenders and bunch of that car was in California when I first saw it. It was like, I think, one of the first converted P1.
Well, the aerials are legal still in California, and they're illegal in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
I had my title stripped.
They're considered a sand.
I went to the DMV and they okayed it, and then I bought it, and then they issued a title. Well, they took the other title, and issued me a Texas title on it, and I drove it for a little over 3 years, and then I got a letter. Your title has been revoked because the automobile that you have is a danger to public safety.
That's what you were talking about when you were posting.
Yeah, and I did a Freedom of Information Act, and they had found nothing to evidence any danger to public safety.
So we are riding up to John's amazing compound right now. This is pretty dope. And John also has a really nice collection of cars here. So as you guys saw, we made our way down to John's main house, which is in itself just a feat, which is pretty awesome. You can see some of it behind me here, some of the views over the side and whatnot. So we're gonna go into the garage that's actually attached to the house, where he also has some interesting, pretty cool cars and other bikes. Some more bikes here. Ariel Adam. Ugh. I remember when you got this thing, people were like, there's a guy in town with an Ariel Adam. And I was like, what?